Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. We'll just take a couple of minutes to get settled here for a few more people to join. I'll get a couple of things set up here so we're ready to go. But thanks for joining. Okay, so while we're waiting for a few people to join, if you could pull up the chat window on the bottom of the Zoom window there, pull up the chat window. I've got it here up as well so that if you have any questions as we're going through the material, you can shoot your questions in there. As you get that pulled up, let me know where you're calling in from, maybe what your role is on projects and what you're looking for out of this presentation. Also, while we get set up here, there's a poll. Let me see if I can launch the poll. So click on the poll and there's a few questions in there. It's always super helpful when people fill out that poll just to make sure that I'm covering the right topics that everybody wants to see on this presentation. So if you could take a minute and complete that poll, that is super helpful as well. So appreciate that. Okay, let's now get screen shared here. So we're ready to go. We'll start right at the top of the hour. Where is there? There we go. And we're going to share that one. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now, and very shortly we'll be able to get started here. So for those that are just joining, pull up the chat window so we can communicate during this presentation. And if you can, be sure to complete the poll just to answer a few questions there and make sure I'm getting everybody's topics addressed here. So right at the top of the hour, let's start on time because we do like on-time commissioning. So today's presentation is on commissioning project management using the top-rated commissioning software tools and the industry best production commissioning processes. You're about to get the #1 commissioning project management framework to manage commissioning of capital projects. So like I said, this presentation is meant to be interactive. Pull up the chat window there. If you have questions at any point that we're going through the presentation, shoot your questions into the chat. I've got the chat window up here. I'll watch for your questions. I'll get them answered as we're going through. I also have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you prefer to hold on to your questions and ask them then, that's fine too. Either way, this is meant to be interactive. So get your questions in the chat, ask them at the end of the presentation. We'll make sure that we get all your commissioning questions answered today. Now, I've been using the commissioning project management frameworks we're going to discuss today on several projects. I've used these commissioning project management frameworks in the power industry, working on hydroelectric generation plants and on HVDC transmission projects. I've used these same frameworks in the aerospace industry, building satellites and rockets for the Canadian Space Agency. I've used these commissioning project management frameworks in the water treatment industry, expanding and upgrading wastewater treatment facilities not too far away from here. I'm also on the organizing committee for the Commissioning Professional Society, where we have an annual event and meet with the best and brightest commissioning minds in the world to talk about some of the challenges that are being faced by the industry and how we can elevate the importance of commissioning on projects. So it's a great event. You should consider attending for sure. Now, I'm not the only one getting results with this approach to commissioning. We've helped several others get these same results on projects. For example, Sheldon or Jonald or Kale and many others, after working with us, they all tell us the same, that this was an eye-opener. They had no idea they could achieve these levels of efficiency with commissioning. After working with us, they tell me that this was the first commissioning explanation they've found that actually helped them on site. This is not just more administration on your projects that you don't need. This is about more time on tools, actually getting the job done in the field, focusing on the work that matters to complete projects. They all tell me they were unaware of how commissioning is integrated into all phases to complete projects, and they found our support super helpful to improve the productivity of their projects. So you can also go to our website at commissioningandstartup.com. We've got tons of success stories there. At the top, you can click on success stories and you can see all the feedback from others that are having great feedback after they've worked with us. That is great to see people succeeding with commissioning on projects. So I know these processes and tools are great stuff. They're helping a lot of people on projects and they can definitely help you on projects too. So just to be clear, though, this is not technical commissioning. If you're here looking for how to do an electrical high pot test, if you're looking for ASHRAE or NEBB building commissioning, you're looking for how to do HVAC test and balance, if you're looking for MEP commissioning, or you're looking for specific flushing standards for food grade piping, you're not going to get any of that here. That's not what this presentation is about. But technical commissioning is not actually what's missing on projects, though, is it? There's a lot of smart people working on projects, and they'll get testing completed one way or the other. What's missing on projects is the structure that's supposed to go around the technical commissioning. What's missing are the processes and tools much earlier in projects to enable the technical experts to be as efficient as possible. So let's look at a simple org chart. The three main project functions are obviously we need to get it designed. At the beginning, we need to get everything installed during construction, and then we need to get it all tested at the end during commissioning. Or if you've got an EPC contract, your design and construction groups may be part of the same group. This still applies as well, regardless of the contract structure. There is typically someone to manage the design, and those people, they're following design best practices to complete all the design deliverables that are required on projects. And there's always someone to manage construction. There's an entire industry dedicated to construction project management. But where are the project management tools and processes for commissioning? On a lot of projects, they don't even exist. There's a gap in the industry for sure. Commissioning is left to the end for people to scramble and figure out later, right? Now, I do want to highlight the distinction between technical commissioning and commissioning project management. Often people refer to commissioning without understanding this distinction. Technical commissioning and commissioning project management, they are separate roles and they do require different skill sets for sure. To be clear, you can't learn technical commissioning in a course. You need that hands-on field experience, right? It's just too dangerous. You need to be working with someone who has done it before and can show you how to complete testing safely. When you're working offshore, for example, or if you're working with high voltage, there's no course or program that's going to show you how to work with 230 kV and send you on your way and wish you luck. It's just not going to happen. It's too dangerous. You need to be working with experienced people and get hand-on experience to perform these dangerous tests. However, when it comes to commissioning project management, you can learn this and you must learn this in advance before starting any of your on-site commissioning. You need to understand the software tools to use and the commissioning processes to follow before starting any project. It's similar to surgery. Do you want a surgeon in the operating room trying to figure out what to do on the fly? Of course not. You want the surgeon who has studied the process and knows the exact steps to follow and the proper tools to use, especially when something goes wrong. So if you want your technical commissioning to go well, then you need a structured process in advance before starting any project. Technical commissioning and commissioning project management, of course, are very closely correlated, and one will determine the success of the other. But with this gap in the industry and this missing commissioning project management function on a lot of projects, it's no wonder that projects are late and over budget. And with the huge volume of upcoming work on projects for electrification, for EV battery supply chains to build, and all the climate change initiatives that we've got upcoming, capital projects play a big part in all industries, and projects need as much help as possible to be successful. So I'm just going to shoot something in the chat. If you see that, can you please respond? I just want to make sure that everybody's plugged in there and everything's working. So this is the gap that we help you fill for commissioning project management. This presentation is for project managers that need to understand the tools and processes required to finish projects during commissioning, and for technical commissioning experts that want to move up in projects and understand commissioning project management. This is also for companies that want to make the transition to top-rated commissioning software so that we can all, of course, save time and money on projects and complete commissioning as efficiently as possible. I don't see anybody in the chat. Can someone just shoot something in the chat and make sure it's working there? I want to make sure that everything's set up and working here before we continue so that nothing gets missed. Okay, great. We got her. Thanks. Thanks. Thanks everybody there. Perfect. We're all set. Let's carry on. With the gap that exists in the industry when commissioning is left to the end, projects are really just gambling. There's no way to affect the outcome of projects, and there's no way to meet your cost and schedule objectives. It's just too difficult. All projects teams can do is roll the dice at the end and hope for the best. It's a crapshoot. I'm going to show you the commissioning project management best practices to successfully complete your projects. And at the end of this presentation, if you'd like some more help, I'll show you how we can help to get these same best practices on your projects. So if this all sounds interesting, then I'm glad you're here. Before we continue, I know there were some people that joined late. If you could complete the poll that's in the Zoom window there, I just want to make sure I'm covering what you need in this presentation. Your feedback is important. So if you haven't already, please hit the poll button there and answer a couple questions. It'll only take you a minute. Warren, I see your hand is raised. By all means, shoot your question in the chat window there. I'll watch for it and I'll make sure that we get your question answered. I want to share some statistics with you that are quite concerning. This is Professor Bent Flivberg. He's from the University of Oxford, and he's compiled a database of over 16,000 projects from the last several decades. He's also written a book. It's called How Big Things Get Done. And if you haven't read it already, you should. It's an excellent book. It talks about all the challenges that are encountered in the construction industry. And from Professor Flivberg's research, it shows that only 8.5% of projects are on time and on budget. That means over 90% of projects are late and over budget. That's terrible. The construction industry definitely has challenges for sure and does have a terrible track record. So to be clear, though, there are certainly lots of challenges contributing to these statistics. There's lots of civil works challenges, underground conditions, heavy civil equipment, large workforces to coordinate for construction productivity. There's always procurement delays, getting the things we need to site for long lead items, lots of challenges there for sure. And even project management is a challenge, right? There's just too much bureaucracy and there's too many meetings. There's too many people trying to administer the project actually, rather than trying to actually work on the project and get the work done. So there's lots of challenges on projects for sure. However, the complexity of completing projects during commissioning is one of the main contributing factors to delays when there are no systems and controls for commissioning. A lot of projects are still stuck in the brute force era to get projects done. They're just trying to ram it through and calling this productivity, right? But brute force has never really worked, which is shown by Professor Flivberg's research. The data shows us this, that the brute force, tough it out in the field and get it done, still isn't producing the results that we want on projects. So I'm going to show you how to structure your commissioning to eliminate the confusion during commissioning so projects can do better than these statistics and improve project outcomes. So let me know in the chat, is this making sense? Have you seen these statistics play out on your projects? What's been your experience? Have your projects been on time and on budget? Or do you fall on the 90% of these statistics where your projects have been late and over budget? Shoot something in the chat if this is all making sense, or if you've seen this play out on your projects. Okay. So the first thing a lot of people want to know when I give this presentation is just tell me what to do. Just give me the checklist to follow, or just show me the procedures. Give me the 6-page document that shows exactly what I need to do. They asked me to say, just tell me how to commission a combustion gas turbine or whatever their specific project is, for example, or just tell me the best software to use and I'll follow that. That'll tell me what I need to do for commissioning. And when I hear these questions, I already know these projects are in trouble because there's a little bit more to it than that. You're never going to find a single document that shows you the steps for commissioning, and you're not going to find that magic software that tells you how to commission your projects because each project is different and you need specific commissioning processes and tools to manage your project commissioning. So first, let's address the problems of what not to do before we talk about what to do on your projects for commissioning. Projects are having problems. We know this. The data shows us this, that 9 out of 10 projects are late and over budget. Projects are losing time during commissioning and they're missing deadlines. But why is this? Why are projects struggling? We need to address these problems before I teach you what to do. Okay, let's check the chats here. Good, making sense. I've seen costs double. Yep, I have too. Specific software for commissioning and startup is absolutely essential. Absolutely, yep. And I'll share a bit more information that might help you with some of that too. Long lead time items are killer. Absolutely, yeah. There's definitely lots of challenges on projects, but we're gonna help you fix all of the commissioning challenges at least, so that we can focus on that part of the project and make commissioning as efficiently as possible for sure. So there are two common mistakes that are made on projects, and just by fixing these two mistakes, projects can see huge improvements. So what are these mistakes? Mistake number one is leaving commissioning to the end of projects. We've been told for decades that commissioning takes place at the end of projects. We need to finish construction and then we need to test things at the end, right? We've heard that for forever, but it's actually not true. This is, of course, what most projects do. They roll the dice at the end, and maybe you've had this experience on projects, but this is what leads to problems on projects. In fact, to be successful, the commissioning process starts right at the beginning during your feed processes, and we need to be implementing our commissioning software during feed to manage our commissioning processes through all stages of the project. When commissioning is left to the end, there's really no way to be proactive. All the problems are left at the end of the project, and there's absolutely no time to recover. The damage is done before on-site commissioning even begins. It's exactly like Stephen Covey says in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. And we must be doing this on our capital projects. We must be implementing commissioning project management processes right from the start. You must have a clear vision of your project objectives right from the start, which means you must have visibility and clarity on how to complete your project during commissioning and startup, especially when you're working with such large project teams on some of our large capital projects. There's just no way to successfully complete projects unless you have clear objectives at the beginning. And it's like that for everything, right? Projects are no different. Imagine flying a plane without knowing your destination. You'll just end up flying in circles and land in your exact same spot where you took off. You'll never get anywhere without a clear objective on your destination. At the highest level, your project objectives are, of course, to deliver high quality systems on time and on budget. And the only way to meet these project objectives is to achieve successful commissioning and startup. Therefore, everything you do on projects, all design and all construction activities, they must be done with a clear objective to successfully complete commissioning and startup. And this is why it's critical to implement structured commissioning processes early in projects so that objectives are clearly defined for everyone to see and understand how their design role or how their construction role contributes to successful commissioning and startup, so that we can have a strong finish on projects to deliver high quality systems on time and on budget. All projects that have ever finished on time and on budget, this is what they're doing. They're implementing commissioning project management right from the beginning, so they have clear goals and objectives on their projects, and to ensure everyone is working towards the same project goal, which can only always be successful commissioning and startup to finish your project on time and on budget. We make it super simple for you to understand how to do this on your projects with industry best commissioning processes and top rated commissioning software. So mistake number 2 is a lot of projects are still using paper and spreadsheets on their projects to manage commissioning. They've got their paper sign-offs, or they've got their custom spreadsheets that they're manually tracking commissioning progress in. And while this used to work 20 years ago, projects are just far too complex for this anymore. We're in the information age, and there are just too many documents and too much information. It's impossible to keep a track of manually in a spreadsheet. We need real-time data to make informed decisions, and we can't wait until Friday's spreadsheet is updated to get the information we need. We need the information now. If we're working on something on a Tuesday, we need to know by 3 o'clock in that afternoon on a Tuesday, was this in fact complete? So even if you've used commissioning software in the past, there are much better solutions that are available now. And I'm going to show you which is the best software to use for your projects. With paper and spreadsheets, it's not an efficient way to get to the end of your project. It's like you're in a maze with no clear path to the end. Maybe you have a few commissioning experts that know what to do on your project, but everyone else that's working on their project, they have their own idea of how their role contributes to the end during commissioning. And it's super difficult to complete a project when everyone's going in different directions and nobody is on the same page about how to finish your project during commissioning. With no clear commissioning objectives, project groups spend more time in meetings talking about the work rather than actually getting the work done in the field. and we don't need more meetings. Everybody hates meetings. We need more time on tools to actually get the job done. Implementing commissioning software early in projects solve this by giving everyone visibility and clarity on what success looks like during commissioning to eliminate confusion and shows everyone how their role contributes to a successful finish during commissioning. Commissioning software makes it super clear for people on how to complete projects during commissioning, simplifying how projects are completed, giving more time on tools to get the job done so you can meet your project objectives, which of course is on time and on budget completion. When projects make one or more of these two common mistakes, which a lot of projects do when they leave commissioning to the end, or if they're still using paper and spreadsheets to manage commissioning, it's because they're missing a project management approach to commissioning. And this is what we call cowboy commissioning. When projects suffer from cowboy commissioning, their work is inefficient. You miss your deadlines. Everything is last minute. Scramble at the end of your projects to try and figure everything out. Project teams are unclear on how to finish projects during commissioning, and it's the reason projects end in commissioning chaos. It's easy to avoid these mistakes when you follow industry best practices for commissioning project management. These are the commissioning processes to follow earlier in your project and using top-rated commissioning software implemented earlier in your project. And I'm going to show you how so your projects can avoid cowboy commissioning. So any questions so far before we move on? Is this making sense? Do your projects suffer from cowboy commissioning? Let me know in the chat. Great. Glad it's making sense, Cyril. All right. Let's start with the processes required for commissioning. And after this, then we'll review the software that's required to manage your commissioning processes. On the process side, there are 3 frameworks required for commissioning project management. We require our planning frameworks to plan for our commissioning activities, our construction completion frameworks, and of course, our on-site commissioning and startup frameworks to manage our commissioning workflows during on-site commissioning. These make up the integrated completions process. When you establish your integrated completions process early in projects, you're able to complete commissioning as efficiently as possible. There are less delays during all stages. The number of snags during commissioning is significantly reduced, and you eliminate the chaos to avoid cowboy commissioning, saving millions of dollars and months of schedule by completing projects more efficiently. And most importantly, we're able to deliver quality systems that we can use for decades of reliable operation. What does CSU stand for? That is commissioning and startup. Commissioning is really a terrible word. It's a long word. And if you work in the industry and you write commissioning 100 times a day, it gets pretty monotonous. So people use CSU, commissioning and startup, or CX to shorten that word. So we don't have to write commissioning with all the M's and S's over and over and over several times a day. However, when you're missing these integrated completions processes, it may seem like you're making progress on your projects until on-site commissioning starts, right? And then nothing works and things are missing and there's constant delays. You're losing time during commissioning and you're scrambling to get things finished at the end. You're faced with costly delays and you end up with cowboy commissioning. That summarizes pretty much most projects, doesn't it? Without integrated completion processes on projects, well, what do project teams do to try and fix this? Well, standard approach is to dump everything on the commissioning guys at the end of the project to sort it out, right? The commissioning guys are the wizards and they'll make everything better. They'll figure this stuff out. Don't worry about it. They'll end up working 16-hour days and 7 days per week to try and recover. And I guess the approach is just fingers crossed, hoping the project will eventually end. The blame game, of course, starts and finger pointing of what went wrong earlier, and your claims start to pile up. And the plan is probably to fight it all out in court, right? But this is hardly a good approach to projects, even though this is what most projects do. So this is what makes up the integrated completions process. But first, why is it called integrated completions process? Well, that's because commissioning project management must be integrated into all early stages of projects. During our procurement processes, we need to have commissioning involved and input into our procurement. During design processes, commissioning needs to be involved to get feedback from the end of the project to earlier groups in the project. During construction, we need to have commissioning involved, and during our construction completions to make sure that we're getting what we need for commissioning. So commissioning needs to be integrated into all phases of the project to make sure that the end of the project goes well. Now, there is only one commissioning process to follow through all stages of projects. All groups working on projects, they're all part of the same commissioning process. There's one commissioning team and one commissioning process to follow, regardless of which group you're part of. All groups on projects have a role in commissioning, and they all must contribute to the same commissioning process to finish projects. It's the only way this all comes together at the end of your project. If you think about it, it's the same way that the systems come together, right? All your equipment, all your subsystems and subsystems, they must all come together at the end of your project to work as one plant process. And this only happens when all groups on your project do the same, to all work together, to collaborate together, to solve problems together, and get the job done together during commissioning. So let's go through each framework of the commissioning process here. The first portion here is our planning frameworks, and there's 10 portions involved here. So the first one is contracts. So commissioning needs to be involved in putting together contracts, especially for engineering design contracts and construction contracts, because there's critical elements that need to go into these contracts that define the end of the project. A lot of times when we look on projects, the details that are in contracts are pretty light when it comes to commissioning. Maybe there's some of the technical details in there, but all the commercial and project management aspects of commissioning are usually missing in contracts. But contracts not only need to be used to get the project started and the work awarded, but they are also a tool to get the project finished. And when the right definition of how these project management frameworks for commissioning are identified in contracts, everybody knows the software to use, the workflows to follow, the sign-offs that are required, what static completion actually means, and it gives those clear goalposts of exactly how the project is going to be finished. It's super important for construction contracts, especially because there's always that complex overlap between construction and commissioning. And when this is properly defined in contracts, it eliminates that confusion and chaos and overlap so that everybody knows exactly what they need to do and when they need to do it, so that commissioning goes much smoother at the end. Also, for equipment procurement contracts, we need to be ensuring that the right offsite details for testing some of the more complex equipment is specified in procurement contracts or specified in the contracts for the groups that are responsible for procurement. We need to make sure that our offsite testing aligns with what our expectations are for on-site testing. And if that's not defined properly in procurement contracts, then a lot of that stuff gets missed and all those issues get pushed to site, which causes lots of problems. So the first aspect there is contracts. The second one is our feed processes. So you've probably been in projects that have been gathering lessons learned, and a lot of projects are they're good at gathering lessons learned, but they're pretty terrible at actually implementing lessons learned. And our feed processes is the process to implement those lessons learned, to have that end of project feedback return to our beginning of project groups during preliminary design reviews, during detailed design reviews. This is where commissioning input is required. This is where our operations input is required to make sure that these lessons learned and feedback are being applied to earlier stages of the project so that we have what we need during commissioning from earlier groups that are preparing some of these design deliverables. And there might be some more detailed packages that require an even more detailed design review for some of our process control narratives or screens for HMIs that need a more deeper dive from those that are involved in the project earlier to make sure that we have what we need later in the project during commissioning and operation. So the next aspect is FAT or IFAT. So we'd be familiar with a lot of the factory acceptance testing that's been taking place for decades. If some of the standard equipment and there's a pump that needs to be tested for a few hours and measured 3 points on the pump curve, we're all familiar with that. But for some of the more complex systems, such as our control and protection cubicles, we need to be making sure that we're performing integrated factory acceptance testing to test both the hardware and the software in the factory to make sure that these cubicles work by the time they arrive at site. Some of this complex equipment, the software is so integral to their function that without the software, they're useless. So we can't be only integrating software and hardware for the first time on site, because that's the time we're supposed to be commissioning, not debugging and programming the code. I'll send a case study after this presentation on 2 projects. One took a different approach to IFAT, and you'll see how that turned out. So watch your email for that that case study to see how IFAT is properly planned for on projects. The next aspect is our project systematization. So this is the main reason that commissioning teams need to be involved earlier in projects, is to help project groups understand how projects are systematized into the various systems and subsystems earlier in the project. So we need to be taking a systems-based approach through design and through construction into commissioning, so that all of our activities align identically with our project startup sequence. Without that project systematization earlier in the project, then things get quickly out of order from a design and construction perspective, and we don't have what we need in the proper sequence at the end to commission and start up our systems. So getting commissioning teams involved earlier and going through project systematization is a critical planning element for projects. Our gated commissioning workflows need to be defined, ideally in contracts, to show all groups working on projects the commissioning workflows that are going to be followed at the end of the project. This defines how each subsystem is going to flow through each of the stages of commissioning, for pre-commissioning, for commissioning, for startup, and who has the authority to manage completion of each of these subsystems at each of these gated processes, who has sign off to make sure that everything's complete before moving through the next stage. So as we go through and define a lot of these items, we'll have a better definition of our planning efforts for commissioning, and that's going to get loaded into our CMS software. So our commissioning software is a critical element of planning because it's responsible for housing all of our processes that we're planning for here, all of our gated commissioning workflows, all of our project systematization. That all gets loaded into software, and that's the primary reason to do this upfront effort, is to make sure that our systems and tools are ready for when we get to on-site commissioning. So CMS software is a critical element to put in place and have ready to go before on-site commissioning starts. As we're going through a lot of our development here and planning, we'll be able to develop our commissioning sequence, and then with dates and durations, figuring out our commissioning schedule. All of this gets loaded into our CMS software as well to plan the sequence of what's required for commissioning and give everybody visibility and clarity on that sequence within our commissioning software, so everybody knows how their role contributes to successful commissioning at the end of the project. Forms and certificates, you're probably familiar with that on a lot of projects, but this is, when I say forms and certificates, it's not really that paper process that we've used in the past. This is defining the forms and certificates, the actual sign-offs within our gated commissioning workflows of what are the forms that are going to be used, what are the staged gates that we're going to follow, and most importantly, who has authority to sign off on each of these staged gates to make sure that everything is actually complete before moving through to the next stage. Checklists and procedures, we've been working with checklists and commissioning procedures for a long time, but this is the actual formalization of that within our commissioning software. And commissioning software is a significant help with this now, is you don't have to spend weeks and months preparing checklists for the same equipment that we've been testing forever. All of these forms and templates and checklists are preloaded into the right commissioning software if you get the right one, significantly saving your time to create this documentation and having it all loaded in software. So it's ready to go and everybody knows what they need and when they need it to work on commissioning, actually doing the testing rather than writing procedures and thinking about what to do. And then the last item, not because it's the least important, but we need to be planning our safety processes that we're going to be using for commissioning. The commissioning team is relied upon heavily to make sure that these systems are started up safely. So we need to be making sure that we have our PSSR processes in place, that we've got our emergency response plans, so that we can ensure that all of these activities all of our equipment startups take place safely, so that everybody can participate in the work and celebrate the success at the end of the project. So those are the 10 planning elements that are part of our commissioning project management framework. I do see a question. Should there be a CM for the construction functions and a separate CM person for the owner operator? I don't necessarily know if we need a separate commissioning manager for construction functions. And then on the owner side, typically there would be one construction manager overseeing construction, and likely owners reps or clients reps participating in there as well. But what is critical, and maybe that's what you're alluding to with CM, is a construction manager and a separate commissioning manager. commissioning can't report to the same group, right? It's a conflict of interest. We need to have a separate group overseeing and planning all of these commissioning efforts. Usually the commissioning manager is a representative, either part of the client's organization or a delegate hired as an owner's rep to oversee the commissioning efforts. And that's a critical function to manage construction and commissioning from those different processes, because they are very different and they do require different skill sets and a different mindset, thought process in what's required for commissioning as opposed to construction. So those functions are important to have separate. So I hope that answers your question. Do you know CMS software named EasyPlant? What do you think about that? I've never heard EasyPlant, but there's amazingly, there's like 25 of these different commissioning softwares. It's crazy how everybody's got their own view or slant or solution on how to solve this complex problem. You definitely want to make sure you pick the right commissioning software, and I'll go through that in a little bit here. So the next framework section here is construction completions, and there's two frameworks required there. You'd be familiar with punch list walkdowns and type A, B, C categorization of punch items, but this is actually formalizing this within the software to have a process to capture these items, to categorize them, and then to link them to schedule within the software so that we know exactly what needs to be done and when it needs to be done, as well as who needs to do it. So it's all itemized in the software and nothing gets missed. All the big details, all the small details, everything's categorized and tracked to formalize our punch list walkdowns and categorization. And then the second function is defining our subsystem static completion. So a lot of project teams get this a bit wrong and don't actually define what static completion is to the detail that's required. And you see in a lot of projects, everybody's definition of done means something different, right? Done means something different to the commissioning guys than to the construction guys, than to the design guys, or even to the owner. But when we're doing this properly and loading this into software, everything's defined on exactly what that static completion is, down to all the physical equipment, all the documentation, so that goalpost to be achieved for each static completion for each subsystem is crystal clear and nobody has any confusion. That way everybody knows exactly what they're working towards, and that way we get what we need for commissioning so that there's nothing missing and there's nothing that's holding us up. It significantly improves the process in that complex transition from construction to commissioning. And then the last set of frameworks here are our on-site commissioning and startup. There's 6 frameworks involved there. You'd be familiar with a lot of these. So pre-commissioning and commissioning, what's taking place during each of those stages. You can think of pre-commissioning as the equipment level testing, the pump by itself. Commissioning moving more into the system level testing, where we're expecting the pump to be working with the motor, pipes, pressure gauges, everything working together as one subsystem, testing the process control narratives to make sure that all the system is working together as a subsystem. That's the transition there. Moving into startup, where we're introducing process fluids for the first time or doing some of our first main circuit elements. Into our performance verification to optimize performance of the systems. Trial operation, your contracts may have a period of time where systems need to operate uninterrupted for 3 days or a week or 30 days or whatever is defined in contracts. Then moving into handing our systems over to plant operators for continued operation and maintenance of the systems. So you can see there's quite a lot involved in commissioning project management processes. And what most people don't realize is that 80% of the work in the process takes place before on-site technical commissioning even starts. And this is the reason we must get our software system set up earlier in projects so we can define the processes we require in advance of on-site commissioning so that everything is ready to go. So when people leave commissioning to the end of projects and they try to cram 80% of the work on top of that last 20% during on-site testing, of course this never works. Of course this creates cowboy commissioning, and this is why we see 9 out of 10 projects late and over budget with this approach. So when you do this right and you get the first 80% correct with best-in-class commissioning processes and everything accurately defined in top-rated commissioning software, the last 20% during on-site testing becomes so much easier to complete. You significantly increase the guys' time on tools where they could focus on production to get the work done. And this is how you avoid cowboy commissioning at the end of your projects. This is also how to complete capital projects on time and on budget, is with these structured processes to make sure that everything's defined, everybody knows what to do, and we can focus on getting the work done. So let me know in the chat. Is this making sense? Is this what you've seen on projects? What's been your experience with regards to this commissioning process? Are your projects implementing this full process, or are you cramming everything at the end? Or what kind of systems and tools and processes are you using to follow this process to help your project succeed? Okay, so now for the software tools. So CMS is always last. Yep. And it's a scramble at the end. But this is why we want to get these tools and systems set up earlier, so it's not a scramble at the end. And these are the software tools that you need to do this. When you implement commissioning software on your projects, you can eliminate the chaos and avoid cowboy commissioning at the end of your projects. You're able to complete projects much more efficiently, saving your projects significant time and money, and significantly increasing the time on tools of the people that are doing this work. Your commissioning experts actually focus on getting the things done on your project to get the work done, to actually progress the work rather than being stuck in meetings talking about how you want to do the work. You're able to deliver high quality systems that we can use for decades of reliable operation. However, when commissioning software is not implemented correctly, or worse, you're still using paper and spreadsheets, you're stuck with cowboy commissioning. You spend more time talking about the work, and I'm sure you've been in this situation, stuck in meetings, talking about how to do commissioning, because without software, everyone has their own idea of what to do for commissioning, and everyone has their own idea of how to get to the end of the project. Nobody has a clear idea of what success looks like during commissioning. And without these structured commissioning processes in software, it's a scramble at the end to complete commissioning, which is why 9 out of 10 projects are late and over budget. I don't want to be stuck in meetings talking about commissioning. I want the systems and tools in place on projects so that we can actually go do the commissioning and get the work done. And it's very fast paced. So getting bogged down in meetings just kills the end of your project. And you got to have this all set up so you're ready to go and can focus strictly on execution. Patrick, this matches our typical water treatment plant capital projects. Yeah, it's on every projects, on all types of projects all over the world. People are struggling with this, which is the reason that we created our commissioning academy here, is to help people get these better systems and tools on their projects to hopefully reduce the amount of pain and suffering that we're having on projects, so we can actually complete our projects much more efficiently. So without software, what do project teams typically try and do? Well, they try and track everything in Excel, right? They have their all singing, all dancing Excel macros that maybe they've perfected over several years, and they have a few people manually updating these each day. And they're probably stuck in meetings. They're trying to explain their spreadsheet to others on what's required for commissioning. And maybe spreadsheets used to work 20 years ago, but projects are just far too complex. With the information overload we have now, it's impossible to keep track of things. A spreadsheet is certainly not going to help others understand what commissioning is all about, which is why I think there's really a lot of confusion about commissioning, is we can't give people that clear picture about what commissioning is all about. You can try and put your spreadsheet up on the screen and you can try and talk about it, but that's not going to cut it. That's not going to tell everybody what they need to do and when they need to do it. It's just too complex. Fernando, it will be possible to see demos of these several software. We do have demo actual trial access within our Commissioning Academy program. I'll tell you how you can get access to that at the end here, where you can actually get a username and password. You can log into the software and you can touch and feel it and see how this stuff actually applies to projects. Excel with macros is our typical. Yeah, I've been on projects like that, and it's killer. You end up with lists of, and you're stuck in meetings reviewing lists of lists. So you have like 15 different lists of this master deficiency log and this automation punch list item and this area completion list. And you've got lists of lists and you're in meetings reviewing lists. It's just killer. Software makes that so much simpler, as it's all right there. It's transparent and everybody sees it and you know exactly what to do, and you can escape the suffering of lists. So if you are still stuck with a lot of these spreadsheets, now's the time to finally transition away from manually tracking in spreadsheets and take advantage of the more sophisticated software tools that are available, because they do allow us to complete commissioning much more efficiently. And, you know, there's all the buzz in the last year about these AI functions that are coming out and Chat GPT and all that stuff. We know that the software is only going to get better. And as these AI features are built more into the software, these software systems are going to get more and more powerful. There's no software system that has fully implemented AI, but it's starting and you can see it coming. And with these systems that are going to get more and more advanced and more sophisticated, are you really going to be the last one using Excel in 5 years from now as people are adopting these new systems and optimizing their workflows? I can't imagine in 5 or 10 years from now any project that's still using Excel, because you'll see the systems are developing so much more that you'll have to adapt. So now's the time to do it for sure, to get in on these systems and take advantage and leverage their capabilities that we know are only going to get better. So we make the leap to commissioning software super easy for companies. You literally get to wave a magic wand, and with our guided support, we make the transition as seamless as possible so you can stay focused on getting the job done. Municipal owners comply with IT and competitive bid purchasing bylaws. Yeah, there's all that bureaucracy for sure. And I've had those discussions with my IT groups, and they say, no, you can't use this and you have to use this and you must use this SAP plugin, but it doesn't do what we need it to do on projects. So I've had those discussions. It's challenging for sure to help people understand how these systems work, and so they can see the value and how much time and money it saves on projects. There's lots of bureaucracy for sure, but we need to be pushing to use these tools so that we can do our jobs easier, more effectively, to help projects succeed. Are these softwares displayed as ranked, or does it depend on the project? It depends on the project somewhat. There's usually the person's background that developed the software. There's a flair of their commissioning perspective, right? So if someone comes from say, well, the building commissioning industry, if they've developed software from that background, then their software has a flair of how to do things in the building commissioning industry, right? If you're working in oil and gas, there's a different flair of how their workflows would flow, and others, right? So there's software that's better suited for some and the other. All the software is generally pretty much the same, but there's just different nuances in maybe some of the terminology or some of the workflows that are used. So there's definitely desired software that targets different industries a little bit better for sure. Patrick M7. I'm not sure what you're referring to by M7, but if you want to clarify, let me know. There are actually, on this list, there's 25 different commissioning software vendors on the market, and you definitely do want to choose the right one for your projects. We've reviewed each of these, and we've sat through the demos of a lot of these software companies, and we know which ones are the best. Now, at the Commissioning Academy, we don't sell software. We've never developed our own software. Our software isn't listed on this sheet, and we don't intend to, because there are already lots of good software options on the market. So instead of developing our own software, what we've done is we've partnered with the best software options that are available and the best ones that are in each industry. So like I said, if you work in the power systems industry, there's a preferred software there. For oil and gas, there's a couple of good options. Data centers, there's a preferred software option for really any industry. If it's mining or chemical projects, hospitals, airports, pharmaceutical, semiconductor, water treatment facilities, there's a desired software that you would choose to use for each of those industries for sure. So we want to make sure you get the right and the best software for your specific projects. And when you work with us, we recommend which one is the best software to use. We get it set up for you so that it's used most efficiently on your projects, and we show your team how to use it. So training can often be tricky as well, right? You talked about some of the hurdles of getting through some of the IT hurdles or competitive bid purchasing bylaws. If you can actually get through that and select a software, then getting your team trained and actually using it, it's a bit of a process here. So that's what we help companies get through, is some of these hurdles to make the transition much easier. So the list that's on the screen, if you would like to get a copy of it, you can go to learncsu.com. When you go to that URL, you're learncsu.com, there's a link right at the bottom, and you'll be able to download this list. You can see all the different softwares that are on here, and check out the list. Each software vendor's link is there, and you can go check out their websites and see what some of the best options are. What type of indicators should I have to decide which software I should apply to HVO and green H2 projects? I can think of one in particular that would be well suited. Maybe book a call with us and we can have a chat. I can learn a little bit more about your projects and probably have an idea of which one might be the right one there for you. So again, the software tools are certainly a big piece of the equation. They're just not the biggest piece. Commissioning is not fundamentally about software. And while a lot of people ask me those questions, what software should I use for this project or what software should I use for that project? Commissioning is not fundamentally about software. And I don't want you to think that you can just get one of these software systems and start using it. All of these programs are extremely flexible, which means they need to be configured specific to your project and specific to your project details to make them useful. Out of the box, each of these are really a blank canvas that you need to configure specific to your project. And commissioning is complex, so naturally setting up the software is going to be complex as well, right? And this is what the Commissioning Academy helps you with, to get the right system set up on your projects, to get your team trained on how to use it so you can stay focused on your projects to get the job done. I just don't want you to feel like you're sitting in the cockpit of a plane trying to get commissioning software selected and set up on your projects. You don't have time for that. We know that projects are busy and you're busy working on projects. You don't have time to fiddle around with new software and define your processes and train your team on how to use it. It's why a lot of project teams have continued with paper and spreadsheets, right? This is a daunting task to get through all the IT hurdles, to get through the competitive bid purchasing, to get the right software selected, to get it all set up, and then to get your team actually on board with using it, when really they'd much rather prefer to use their spreadsheets that they're comfortable with, right? Change can be difficult. It's easier to continue with what you know, and it's difficult to make that change to an unknown system. It can be scary. Where do you start? That list, there's 25 different software systems on there. Which link do you first click on to investigate and see which one is the right one? If I sat in this cockpit here, I would have no clue which button to push. And I don't want you to feel that way when you're selecting your commissioning software. The thing about these software programs is if you have great commissioning processes, you'll love them. But if you don't have great commissioning processes, you'll probably hate them. And most projects are not super process driven, which is why we see a lot of projects struggle with their commissioning software. So before getting into the software, we help project teams define their commissioning processes. So they first have commissioning processes that are actually worth repeating in software. Only once you have robust commissioning processes should you jump into the cockpit and start configuring your software. Because what we certainly don't want to do is take a bad commissioning process and digitize it. When we see project teams doing this, these are the ones that probably hate their commissioning software and have maybe used it for a bit and are looking for something different. And these are also the project teams that probably can't get their project teams to want to use the software, right? They're complaining about their software. It doesn't work. They hate it. And they want to go back to their paper and spreadsheets that they're comfortable with. So we don't want you to fall into this trap. At the Commissioning Academy, we help companies implement these top-rated commissioning softwares with industry best commissioning processes so you can get the most value from it, so that your project team actually wants to use it because they see the value that they get from using the software. If project teams get this transition wrong, or they're using their software incorrectly, their software becomes more of a burden rather than a help. It's not helping people complete projects, and it's actually costing money rather than saving money. Your project team ends up hating the software, and they're begging you to give them back their paper and spreadsheets that they can use because they hate the software. We make the transition to digital systems super easy for you with our 8-step process to show you exactly what you need so you can master the configuration of your software. Our programs really make it super simple with our guided support. You get everything you need in an easy to follow format, including how all of this works to segment your equipment tag lists split into subsystems and systems, how your checklists are loaded and tracked for completion, how your commissioning workflows are created and tracked, how roles are defined within the software to hold people accountable for what they need to do and when they need to do it. And this is probably the piece that we see most project teams get wrong, is how to track schedule milestones in commissioning software. We actually see a lot of project teams that are using this software, but they're not using it to the capability that it needs to, or they're not even incorporating schedule within their software. and it's costing them millions of dollars and they don't even know it. So we show you how to use your software so that you can define and track what needs to be done, but more importantly, when it needs to be done. And when you can also define in your software who needs to do it, like an actual specific name of someone that needs to do that particular task, this is pretty powerful stuff. It's a powerful combination that spreadsheets just can't do. When all groups on projects understand what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, and actually who needs to do it, all groups, everyone that's part of your project, on your design team, on your construction team, in your commissioning groups, they all have this visibility to complete projects. And they don't need to be an expert in commissioning because it's not realistic to expect everyone working on our projects is going to be an expert in commissioning. So when software is set up and used properly, it's pretty powerful stuff. Nothing gets missed. Every small punch item is tracked and everybody knows their role to contribute to successful completion. It becomes so much easier to finish projects. Our services literally give you a step-by-step guide on how to use your commissioning software in the best possible way, so you don't have to feel like you're stuck in this cockpit having no clue on what to do. Okay, so these are the two most common mistakes that are made on projects: leaving commissioning to the end of projects and still using paper and spreadsheets on projects. And these are the two main reasons why projects are struggling with commissioning. And if you fix just these two things, you already made huge improvements on your projects. Patrick, what change have you seen with commissioning in past 4 years? 4 years ago, used paper startup checklist and with witness manual. Is there an electronic sign-off method for checklist? Absolutely, and that's what the software does. There's always some instances on projects where you still need a paper process. If you're going into intrinsically safe areas, you still need a paperwork process, but we keep that to a minimum. And everything else that doesn't have those restrictions, it's all digital checklists. So your paper checklist, it's right in software. Everything there: pass, NA, fail, measure values, confirm pass, fail criteria. And you know right away, pass, 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 pass. Anything that fails, punch list items are raised. They're all tracked in software. This is all done on your laptop, on your handheld device, on your phone, on a tablet, and you get that real-time integration of data being fed into the system. It significantly simplifies the processes. Yeah, I could say even 4 years ago that there was the beginnings of some of that, and some people were adopting that, but if it didn't work well. Now it's been optimized where these systems are pretty amazing what they can do. When you get into them and you can actually see how checklists are implemented in the software, it's quite incredible what some of these systems can do. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to us and see how we can get you involved in some of these new processes that will significantly help your projects. So I did mention earlier a case study that I'm going to share with you. I'm not going to go through the details here. I'll email you the link afterwards. What it is, it's a comparison between two power projects that took place at the same time here in Canada. And you can see their different approach to integrated factory acceptance testing, and you can see how that turned out for one project versus the other project. So watch your email for that link and you can check it out. So we've covered a lot of good information today. I do like to keep this presentation to an hour here, so we'll try and close out here. We've talked about the commissioning project management processes to follow, and we've talked about the commissioning software tools required to manage your commissioning. Let me know in the chat. Are you ready to go get this done on your projects? Do you know the software to use? Do you know the processes to follow? Can you start getting this set up on your projects? And if you are ready, what's the first step that you'll take on Monday? How are you going to start implementing and getting this figured out for your projects? What I've given you today are the commissioning tools and processes that successful project teams are using to simplify commissioning and to complete commissioning as efficiently as possible. What I've given you are the commissioning tools and processes if you want to avoid making costly mistakes on your projects. You want to avoid cowboy commissioning and the scramble at the end of projects. You want to avoid using outdated commissioning software, and you want to avoid the inefficiencies of paper and spreadsheets. Of course, we all want to do this, and I'm sure that you want to complete commissioning as efficiently as possible. You want to follow industry best practices for commissioning. and you want to make the transition to software as painless as possible. You don't want this to be a 2-year process of developing and rolling this out to your team, and you want to make a real impact on projects by improving your systems and processes. So the way I see it is you really have two options that you can pursue here. Is you can continue with your cowboy commissioning. You can keep using your paper and spreadsheets. Or you could spend the next several years trying to figure this out and what to do for your projects on your own. You could, if you do go that route, you'll probably always have some doubt if you're using the right software, if you're being as efficient as possible. And you can try and train your teams, develop your training and roll that out to your groups on your own. The second option, though, of course, is what I consider the better option is you can get help to make this transition to digital systems. You can get access to the industry best processes and software. You get someone to show you exactly what you need, the software to use and processes to follow that are customized and specific for your exact project needs. You can get someone to roll this out to your team with training that's already developed to show people how to use this, so you can stay focused on getting your projects done, because we know you're busy. Nobody has time to go investigate this as a side project to figure this out. It just won't happen. Projects are too busy, and you need to stay focused on the work to get this done. So if option number 2 sounds like the better way, we've got 2 different ways that we can help you and your projects, and I'll break them down for you in just a second. But after working with so many people on so many projects, we've seen what works and what doesn't to complete commissioning. And we've seen how to help people in projects get the best results. So I want you to go to learncsu.com. There's a few questions to answer. You can tell us about your projects and see if we can help you get the tools and processes you need for commissioning too. It's super simple. Go to learncsu.com and click one of the big purple buttons that applies to you, answer a few questions, and hit submit. You'll get an instant response from us to know if you and your projects are a good fit for our help. Blair, this is not my call, but I can discuss with my management. Absolutely. Yep. So if you want to go on there and book a call with us, bring your management to the call as well, or I can have a chat first with you, Blair, maybe what some of your needs are, and then we can have a chat later with your management. By all means, go to learncsu.com and reach out to us, and we'll see how we can help you. Is there any software that simplifies the preparation of structure of the commissioning, division by system and subsystem? So that's the fundamental thing that software does. If you get the right software system, that's what they do is prepare that structure of the commissioning. So breaking it down by system and subsystem. And that's what the software does. That's the support that we help and provide, is to get project teams that division of subsystems and subsystems to the right level, get that loaded into software. So that's all crystal clear defined for you in your software. So everybody has that visibility on the systems and subsystems, and then how they're going to flow through the workflows to complete each of those. So, yep, that's exactly what software does, Sully. How can a software do that? I do it on P&ID. You are correct. There is a process to go through that, but the software significantly simplifies that, because when you're going through that effort on a P&ID, and there's still some of that involved too, some of the easiest ways is just a P&ID and a highlighter. But when you go through those items and divide that up, then it becomes so much easier in software to keep track of everything and make sure that everything's divided up properly. There is no software I've found that takes like a picture of a P&ID and splits it up for you, because it's always that commissioning expertise that's required in specifically how you want to start up your project. No software is going to tell you how to start up your project. Only the commissioning experts can do that, to define this system first, that system next, depending on your specific project needs. But once you define that, it all goes into software pretty easily. But it has to be divided before the input to the software. Yes and no. Yeah, we can talk through that specific challenge that you're facing there, because I know what you're talking about, and it is a challenge for sure. But when you put in the upfront effort and you go through splitting those up by systems and subsystems, it's not so bad, and we can help you with that if you need. So yeah, reach out to us for sure. Okay. So the 2 levels of support that we do offer. Our first option is for organizations that want to get these best-in-class commissioning project management processes set up on their projects. The processes to follow, and the top-rated commissioning software to use so they can complete commissioning as efficiently as possible. Companies working on projects are busy. We know that, right? You don't have time to figure this all out, to research the best software options or go attend all these software demos with a bunch of sales guys that don't really know anything about commissioning anyways. You got to cut through all this noise and try and pick the best one. It's daunting. To try and get this stuff all set up on your projects and then try to get your team trained on how to use these new systems. When I describe it, it sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? I've been through those corporate process improvement initiatives and everybody hates them, which is why a lot of companies have avoided making this switch to commissioning software because it just sounds too daunting, right? Besides, you're busy. You've got projects to work on. You need to focus on getting the work done. You don't have time to figure out a new tool, a new software, and get it rolled out to your team. This is what we make super simple, is this transition. We want to make this as pain-free as possible for you. We know the software to use, and we know how to set it up on your projects. And we also have all the resources to get your team trained so you can see value from your new software right away rather than this being a long, drawn-out process. You literally get to wave a magic wand and make the transition to commissioning software happen for you. You get a trusted partner to upgrade your paper and spreadsheet processes to get the best practices to manage commissioning using top-rated commissioning software that matches your exact project needs. You get a custom solution of exactly what you need. No compromises. You get exactly what you want for commissioning project management so you can complete commissioning as efficiently as possible and save time and money on projects using the best tools and processes available. Do you think it would be possible to make a presentation on the potential of software to our organizations? Absolutely. Yep. No problem. I can do the same webinar presentation. You can have them join the next webinar presentation. I do this every Friday. If you want to have them come back to the next one, I'm happy to do a presentation right to your organization, Fernando. Just reach out to us and I'll see what information you need and what discussions we want to line up. I can present the commissioning process to our capital project team, and group manager would like to discuss this presentation. Absolutely. Yep. So one thing I will do is send a link to this presentation. If that's helpful, they can watch a replay of the link. They can attend our next live webinar next Friday if you want. You'll get a link in the email I'll send after this where you can sign them up for the presentation. Or like Fernando suggested, if you want a specific presentation for your group, just reach out to us and we'll see how we can get you the information you need for your discussions. We want to make this super simple because it is a big task. It is a big thing to bite off. And it's why a lot of projects are still using paper and spreadsheets, because it's a huge process improvement initiative. So this option that I've just described is really perfect for organizations because it makes the transition so much simpler to eliminate spreadsheets and eliminate the cowboy commissioning. And maybe you've already got great commissioning processes being tracked in your software, but it's finally time to make that transition to, tracked in your spreadsheets, but it's time to make that time to transition to software. We want to make that transition easy for you. If you've thought about making this digital transformation for a while, now is the time because the tools are only going to improve to get better and AI functions are going to be built in more. And if project teams are still using paper and spreadsheets in 5 or 10 years from now, there's nothing for these AI systems to be able to use and read and monitor. And commissioning, I think, is actually going to be a pretty big use case for these AI tools that exist, not the Tesla robots that are going to be doing the commissioning in the field, but the data that's generated from commissioning. That's a perfect use case for some of these AI tools that we know are coming to be able to analyze this data and help us make better decisions on projects. So now's the time to make the transition because we don't want you to get left behind. We do want to make this transition as easy as possible, and we can take baby steps. Sometimes people need to roll this out on a smaller piece of the smaller project or a smaller item just to see how it works before expanding to other areas in the company. Totally get it. That makes perfect sense. We do want to get your teams trained so they know how to use these systems and make it super simple. Need to drop. Thanks for the presentation. I hope you would be sharing this recording. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll get you what you need. And then you can share the information with others. So the real goal is here, we want to make help people complete projects as efficiently as possible. So you're able to manage more projects at the same time, because we know there's a huge volume of work coming up. Managing multiple projects at the same time is going to become impossible if it's not already impossible with spreadsheets. with these better tools, you're able to manage increased workload over the next several years, and it's definitely a huge help. So we do have a second option. Maybe there's some people that are still hesitant about this whole business here and not convinced that software is the right thing. And you want to see how this all works first, or dip your toe in a little bit more slowly on what this process might look like. Well, our next option might be good for you too. This is our certificate program in commissioning project management, where this is perfect for individuals or someone that's looking for this for themselves that wants to test the waters to see how this works. If you want to learn the industry best commissioning processes to follow, and if you want to learn what are the top rated commissioning software to use, well, that's all in our certificate in commissioning project management program. This might be a good option for you as well. When you enroll in our program, you get our complete integrated commissioning process to follow everything that we've discussed today, including all of the typical mechanical, electrical, automation tests that takes place on projects. You also get to see our software tools training, which has been a recent upgrade to show, and you can actually, when you log in and you're completing some of the programs, you get trial access to the software where you can go into the software, you can touch and feel it, you can click on the buttons, you can upload tag lists to the software and see how it actually works and see how it can actually be applied to projects. So if you're not convinced about this, this might be a good option for you as well, to actually touch and feel and see the tools and how they can help you on projects. You get access to all of our software training, you get access to all of our document libraries, our private members LinkedIn group, you get access to our commissioning jobs network, lots of great resources. When you complete the program, you also get a certificate in commissioning project management that is super helpful to show others that you understand these tools, you understand these processes, and people have been using it to get their next commissioning role. So you get to see how this complete commissioning project management process works and how it can benefit you and your projects. Is this a monthly subscription? If you're referring to the software is usually a monthly subscription where and it's, you can go on a lot of the vendors' websites and you can see what the monthly subscription fees are. It varies quite a bit based on number of users that are connected into the software or the size of your project tag lists. That's the monthly subscription. Our programs aren't a monthly subscription. We can talk about the different fee structures and payment options that are included, but it's not a monthly subscription. How long is the individual course? We found that people need flexibility. So people log in online, and when they access the course, there's flexibility to take it as you need. So we find that people usually spend 4 to 5 hours per week, part-time as time's available, and it would take about 4 to 6 weeks to complete part-time. You can certainly go through it a lot quicker. I had some people go through it over the Christmas break where they blitzed through it in a couple of weeks. You can take it as fast or as slow as you like. So our individual course might be a good option if you're more interested for yourself, or if you want to dip your toe in the water to see how this stuff works before biting off the bigger chunk for your organization to upgrade your systems for commissioning. When you do complete the program and you pass the exam, you get your certificate in commissioning project management, showing that you have completed the program and that you understand these processes and tools to use for commissioning project management. It shows others that you're serious about commissioning project management and ready to work on projects. You can post your certificate to our commissioning jobs network, and this is a super good way to find your next role. We've got several recruiters and employers plugged into our jobs network, and they're always actively monitoring for people that are ready and willing and able to work on projects, because there's such a huge labor shortage that people are always watching to see new and talented people that are up and coming in the commissioning industry that can help on projects. So this is a good way for people to find their next role as well. So for individuals that want to learn more about commissioning project management, this is a good option for you as well, to learn what's required, the processes to follow, the tools to use, and you can get your certificate in commissioning project management. This gives you a massive head start. So go to learncsu.com right now and submit your info to see if you qualify to join our program. So here's how this works. Go to learncsu.com, and there's 2 options you can choose. If you're interested in commissioning project management for your organization, to get the industry best commissioning processes to follow and the top rated commissioning software to use, and also have someone.
Please try again.
That's interesting. And if you want to have someone guide you through this transition, then you click the first button for my organization. Fill out a bit of information to tell us about your project and book a call. We can have a chat. If you're interested in commissioning project management for yourself, the second button is for you, that purple button that says for myself. You can see how this all works, and you can get your certificate in commissioning project management. That's the second button. So if you're interested from an individual perspective, click on for myself. Each button will take you to a page where you can answer a few questions to tell us more about you and your projects and to see if this is a good fit for you. You'll get an instant response to know if you and your projects meet the minimum requirements. So this is super simple. You get all the information you need. If you click on either of those buttons, you'll get access to everything you need. So there's several options to contact us if you need to get more information, if you want to have a chat like suggested earlier to talk with others in your organization, your managers. When you submit as an individual, you can get the links to enroll, all the pricing options that are available. Everything you need is at learncsu.com when you submit your information. We want to make things super simple because commissioning is complex. This needs to be simple. We need to simplify the process to help people get the resources and the information they need to get this stuff figured out on their projects. So everything's here. You get to evaluate the options and make an informed decision to see what's best for you and your project. So go to learncsu.com right away, answer a few questions, and you can get access to the best source of commissioning project management expertise that is available, because this literally is the most comprehensive support for commissioning project management expertise that's ever been created. I've looked everywhere, high and low, to see if there's something else out there that exists, but I've never been able to find it. There's definitely a gap in the industry on how this stuff works. There's an information vacuum on what's required for projects when it comes to commissioning project management. And this is why we created the Commissioning Academy, is to give you the resources you need to succeed with commissioning project management. So go to learncsu.com right away and submit your information now. You can also see the success stories that others are having with us. If you go to our website at commissioningandstartup.com, at the top, you can go click in the menu. There's an item that is success stories, and you can see what everybody else is saying about our support and how we've helped them on their projects. So check that out as well. Finally, there is a super simple way for you to get the support you need for commissioning project management. So go to learncsu.com, click one of the big purple buttons to get started right away. If you're a company that wants to get the best in class commissioning project management with the industry best commissioning processes to follow and the top rated commissioning software with someone to make the transition easy for you, then the first button is for you, for my organization. Click on there. If you want to learn more on your own and you want to see how this all works to get ready for your next project so you can understand the best practices to manage commissioning, the second button is for you, for myself. Click on that, submit your information, and we'll see how we can help you out. Now, if you do have all this figured out on your projects, and this is exactly what you're doing on projects, you're using the best processes and you have the best software tools, then I do encourage you to keep up the good work, because we need more good people working on projects. We need to help people understand this, and you're one of the leaders that are helping projects succeed with commissioning project management. However, we can see that a lot of project teams have not figured this stuff out on projects because a lot of projects are still late and over budget. 9 out of 10 projects are late and over budget. So this tells me that a lot of project teams haven't figured this out yet on projects. And these are the people and projects that we want to help, so we can help people succeed with commissioning. So if you're ready to get a massive advantage with commissioning project management, go to learncsu.com, click on one of the big purple buttons that applies to you, and fill out the form to submit your information. This is literally the fastest and easiest method to get everything you need for commissioning project management, to get the industry best commissioning processes, to get the top rated commissioning software for your projects, and also get your certificate in commissioning project management if that's what you need. This makes your transition to commissioning software as pain-free as possible. I'm looking forward to helping you and your projects succeed with commissioning. Cool. All right. So that's the end of the presentation that I wanted to give today. I do have some time for some Q&A, as I promised at the beginning of the presentation. And I do see there's a few more questions. So David is asking, does the free 3-day mini course cover some information from the main individual course? Yep. So the 3-day mini course is a great place to start. It's called a mini course because we can't put everything into the into a 3-day mini course, but it is a good start to get an idea of what this is all about, some of the processes that are followed. It doesn't talk too much about the software because that's a little bit more advanced, but if you want to check out the 3-day mini course to get a start and see what this is about before getting full into the full course, that's a good option for you as well. So yeah, definitely check out the 3-day mini course if that's the place you want to start. And then once you're done that, reach out to us. Let's have a chat and see how we can get you the rest of the information that you need for projects to succeed. So if there are any more questions, shoot them in the chat. There are some common questions I do get at this point. So I'm going to go through those right now while you enter any additional questions in the chat. I'll watch for those. So people often ask me, why do I need software for commissioning project management? Our spreadsheets have been working just fine for us. We've been using those for years, and maybe they have been working fine for you. I'm sure you've been getting the work done because the project does need to get done, and projects do eventually finish. Your spreadsheets probably do work for you. And the reason they probably do work for you is because you probably have good people working on your projects that understand the commissioning processes and don't need to rely so heavily on the process or the paperwork side of things, right? Is because they're experts and they know what they're doing. But when working on projects, it's not reasonable to expect that everyone's going to understand commissioning, right? There's people that aren't as close to commissioning, and there's people that are new to the project, and we can't expect everyone on projects to be a commissioning expert. Spreadsheets are really still the brute force way to get the job done, relying on the expertise and less on the process, right? When you have good people and you have good processes by upgrading to software, you can gain even so much more efficiency by giving everyone in your project visibility and clarity on what's required for commissioning. So you can skip the bureaucracy that usually bogs down projects, and you can get more time on tools to actually get the job done. When you're using more tools, more efficient tools like software, it becomes so much easier to finish the end of your project. So schedule a meeting with me and we can discuss the benefits you'll receive by upgrading from your spreadsheets and getting into some of these software systems. Sometimes I often get asked as well, why do I need commissioning project management? Isn't this all covered when you get your PMP and get PMP certified? When you look at what PMI has put together there, there's lots of information on starting a project, but it's pretty light on details to finish capital projects. You'll see all the stuff that's standard in there for project charters and tracking budgets and all that stuff. And it briefly covers quality management a little bit, but there's nothing on the processes or tools required for commissioning project. It's a complete gap. And I think this is why a lot of people are confused with commissioning, is because this stuff isn't really taught anywhere to project managers or to people working on projects. Commissioning project management isn't well understood in the industry, and it really is the missing part of what's required to actually finish capital projects. So PMP is certainly good on getting projects started, but everything we cover in our programs is helping people with finishing projects, the systems and the tools that are required to actually finish a project. Because we do have this opinion that it's great to start a project, but it's somewhat irresponsible to start a project if you don't have a clear plan to finish it. So with all the stuff that's missing in commissioning project management, that's the gap that we fill to actually give you the tools and processes to finish projects as they need to be for capital projects. So sometimes people ask me, does this commissioning project management apply to a specific industry? So remember we talked about technical commissioning earlier in the presentation. There is a distinction between technical commissioning and commissioning project management. All projects, of course, do technical commissioning differently, right? Every project has unique technical requirements. The breakers to close and the valves to open, these are always project specific. The technical commissioning aspects are always different. There's no two projects that are the same. However, the processes and the tools for commissioning project management, these apply to all industries, regardless of the technical details. The same risk mitigating steps that we've discussed today need to be taken on all capital projects in all industries. It's always the same risk-based approach to manage commissioning so that your project-specific technical commissioning goes much better at the end of your project. So the commissioning project management principles that we use and that we apply to our projects apply to all complex projects, whether it's process systems or energy systems, really any complex project involving any mechanical, electrical, and automation equipment. This work needs to come together at the end of the project, and these are the systems and tools that you need to do that. So to answer the question, yes, these commissioning project management principles apply across all industries to manage your project-specific technical commissioning. One other typical question, then I'll answer yours, Fernando, is people ask me, can they do this later? This all sounds good, but they're busy and they don't have time right now. And I totally get it. Project life is busy for sure. And now might not be a good time. And this is the main reason we created the Commissioning Academy, because we know you're busy and project teams need help to get this stuff figured out, to make the transition as seamless as possible. So even if you think you're too busy for this now, this is what we help with, is to make some of these positive improvement changes on your project. So submit your information and see how we can make this transition much easier for you to get you what you need for your projects so that you can stay focused on the work and focus on actually getting your projects done by having someone else help you to make this transition. So your question, Fernando, if you already have an Excel or project loaded with thousands of lines with all systems and subsystems, will it be possible to import all this information into one of these softwares? So to answer that question, yes, absolutely, because that's the fundamental starting point, is that technical definition of your project. So all of the tag lists that are required, how those are broken into classes, subsystems, and systems. In parallel with that, all of your submittal lists for your documentation that goes hand in hand with your physical assets of your project. That definition in Excel is what we help teams, project teams, develop and come up with to get that in the right format so it loads into the software. So yes, you're already part of the way there. Is this not possible? If this is not possible, it will not be better to continue with the old process. Loading a new system must be a huge job. When you talk to a lot of these software vendors, they'll tell you that they can get their system set up within an hour and it's up and running right away. That's only possible if you have a good data set. So getting the data from your project can take a little bit of work, and getting the right data in the right specific formats for the software can take some data. So there's a little bit of work required there for sure, but this is something we help with through our Commissioning Academy support services, is to help project teams find what they need, get it in the right format, get it all ready to go so it's going to load into the software, because then once you get it loaded into the software, if that's all done correctly, then everything goes so much smoother. So you're asking the right questions there, Fernando, for sure. And it can take a little bit of thought and a little bit of effort to get it right. But with our help, we'll make sure you get it right so that your software systems are up and running to perfection. Okay. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. So maybe let's end it there. So please go to learncsu.com, click on the big purple button that applies to you, submit your information, and confirm that our support and our certificate program is a good fit for you. When you do that, you'll get all the next steps on the next page. I want to let you know that we're here to help you understand commissioning project management and to help your project succeed with commissioning, to help you in your commissioning career, and to help you with the global challenges that we all face together to complete capital projects. So watch your email. I will send you some links after this. Once we're done here, I'll send you a link to this replay that you can watch again. You can share it with others, no problem there. Please share it with others by all means, because we want more people to understand this, of what's required to complete capital projects. And the more people that understand commissioning, the better for sure. You'll also get a link so you can join our next live webinar if you would like to come back, or if you would like to share that link with others in your organization or your management that you think would benefit from hearing this same presentation. By all means, share the link there, and we'll see you all again next Friday. I'll also send you the link to the page that's on the screen here at learncsu.com. So this is where you need to submit your information and get the support you need for commissioning project management, and see how we can help you on your projects. So I just want to thank everybody for joining. There was lots of great comments in the chat, lots of great questions, lots of great engagement. And David is asking, is this presentation next Friday different from this one? It always varies a little bit, but I like to keep a lot of the content the same because this is the content that really helps people understand the tools and the processes that are needed for commissioning. So it's largely the same, but by all means, come back next Friday or tell others to join. If you want to join, that's awesome. If you want to send the link to others that you think would benefit from hearing this presentation, by all means, share the link as well. So last chance for any more questions. I don't see anything come in, so let's end it there. Everybody have a great day. Have a great weekend. Please stay safe on your projects, and I'll see you again soon.